Released on the 24th of June 1958, based on a true story set in 1942, starring John Mills, Anthony Quayle, Sylvia Sims, and Harry Andrews. Ice Cold in Alex is centered around Captain Anderson, the officer commanding a British motor ambulance company in Tobruk, who is suffering from both battle fatigue and alcoholism. The Afrika Korps are closing in and Anderson's unit is ordered to evacuate to Alexandria. Anderson, MSM, Tom Pugh, and two nurses, Sister Diana Murdoch and Sister Denise Norton, become separated from the main convoy in an ambulance nicknamed Katie. Attempting to reach the British lines, they encounter an Afrikaner, South African officer, Captain Van der Pol. Van der Pol shows Anderson 2 bottles of gin in his pack, persuading him to accompany them to safety in Alexandria. They encounter several obstacles, including a minefield, a broken suspension spring which Van der Pol helps change, and the dangerous terrain of the Crater Depression. But an encounter with a German motorized unit, Anderson tries to outrun them. There's gunfire and Norton is fatally wounded. Anderson blames himself and vows not to drink any alcohol until he can have an ice-cold lager in Alex. Van der Pol, who claims to have learned German whilst working in German Southwest Africa, convinces the Germans to allow them to continue. In a second encounter, the Germans seem reluctant to believe Van der Pol until he shows them the contents of his pack. Pugh, troubled by Van der Pol's lack of knowledge of the South African Army's tuburing technique, spies on him when he walks off alone, supposedly to dig a latrine, and thinks he sees a radio antenna. At night, when they turn on the ambulance headlights to see what Van der Pol is doing, he blunders into quicksand in a panic and submerges his pack. Realizing Van der Pol is probably a German spy, they choose not to confront him since Katie must be hand-cranked in reverse up a sand dune escarpment, and his strength is crucial to their success. The party concludes they don't want to see Van der Pol shot for espionage, and after they reach Alexandria, Anderson delivers everyone's papers except Van der Pol's to the military police checkpoint. He reports that Van der Pol is a lost German soldier who surrendered to them under his parole. The MPs agree to let the party have a farewell drink with their captive before taking him into custody. They go to the bar where Anderson consumes a cold beer with relish. But military police officers arrive before they finish their first round of drinks to arrest Van der Pol. Anderson, indebted to Van der Pol for saving their lives, says that if he gives his real name, he'll be treated as a prisoner of war rather than executed as a spy, which Van der Pol does. They say their farewells, concluding they were all against the desert, the greater enemy. Does it still hold up today? Well, as a historical insight into the lives of 4 people overcoming both the odds and the desert, it's a fascinating watch, made all the more so by 4 hugely talented actors. You can almost smell the sweat and feel the heat as they struggle with the landscape, and even the ambulance becomes a character as the story unfolds. It's difficult to comment about the plot, as how much of it is inspired by a true event and how much of it is embellished by the author. You can't know. Of course, the distance and timeline is somewhat reduced to make it a theatrical product. But that said, this doesn't deter from the feat they endured and overcame. Shot in black and white, which was still the most common medium back in the 1950s, however, the choice to shoot in black and white helps to give this story a sense of realism. It's not a sweeping epic, as was commonly made in colour at that time, but a small film about 4 people, and stays somewhat tightly knit focused upon them rather than either the war or any wider issue an epic would address. As it was mostly filmed in Libya, the landscape and the hardship feels more authentic, as if we were watching the events as they were happening. Apart from the little gunfire and the death of the nurse at the beginning, for the most part it's not a war story. That's just the reason why they're all there. What it is a tale of man against nature, to which man won, and despite its wartime setting, ranks up there with any other great survivalist adventure movie.